Hey guys, Andrew Shrout. I'm here in the sideboard. I'm sitting with Kent Ketter. How's it going, man?
Good, good.
Kent, you have chosen to show up with red-black devotion
Yes.
for the standard portion of
Yes.
the tournament. Tell me a little about what went into that decision and why you chose to play this deck.
Sure. So I feel like standard is going back through its cycle of, the rev decks are becoming less popular. People are going back towards mono black.
Okay.
And as soon as I hear that people are going back towards mono black or, black variants, the immediate thing I want to do is grab my Burning Tree Emissaries.
Sure.
I want to grab a card that lets me break the 1-for-1 parity. Burning Tree just lets you do that. The specific reason I chose red-black devotion for this tournament was I felt the mono-black matchup was very good, and all of your non-rev matchups, I feel like I can win any of them.
Okay.
So going into the tournament with the ability to beat a popular deck, have a solid plan against everything but one deck in the field, feels pretty strong, because then I just get to use my sideboard for that last matchup.
Sure.
I have access to 6 or 7 cards that I'm happy to bring in the Revelation matchup.
So basically, we're looking for the best Burning Tree Emissary deck.
Yes.
The idea there being to get 2 creatures out ahead of the 1 removal spell per turn.
Yep. Or
the control deck
Burning Tree Emissary and Hammer. That's just as good as 2 creatures against them. So.
All right. This is kind of a stock deck. It's been a deck for a long time, these red Nykthos decks.
Yes, absolutely.
There are some new additions.
Yes.
So I'm going to focus on those in particular.
Sure.
The one that stands out, you have 4 Eidolon of the Great Revel.
Absolutely.
Tell me how this card's been for you.
Eidolon has been a strict upgrade to Ash Zealot. Ash Zealot was the previous 2-drop slot that most people were favored. Haste, first strike, reasonable stats.
All right.
But when you actually get to play with it, you realize that Ash Zealot runs into Caryatid, Courser.
Right.
And if Monsters is prevalent, which it always is, it's a fantastic deck, go Monsters. You need a way to get damage around that.
Okay.
Eidolon of the Great Revel was the obvious choice. Now, some people might say, oh, you're going to take damage from your own stuff.
Right.
Every single time you play the card, especially because you're the red mage, you're going to deal damage to them faster than they're going to deal it to you.
Sure.
So you're happy to expend both your life totals in such a way that, they're basically losing more of a resource than you are.
Sure. Yeah, you will take some damage on occasion,
absolutely.
but that's totally okay.
Everything that you're casting that's dealing you damage is making them have to take more damage.
Putting pressure on them, forcing them to come up with answers.
It makes it very good against the black decks and the rev deck early game where they're trying to cast a couple removal spells to slow down your pacing.
Okay.
Eidolon makes it where sometimes they just have to go straight to the wrathing stage.
Right.
And forcing them to wrath early in the rev matchup is integral to winning that one.
So kind of a new all-star of this archetype.
Yes, I believe so.
Cool. The other big change here, you're splashing black.
Yes.
The only black card in the main deck is a full package of 4 Dreadbores.
Yes.
So tell me a little about Dreadbore.
So previously, I liked the 3/3 split of Dreadbore, 3 Dreadbore, 3 Mizium Mortar.
Okay.
And for this tournament, I felt with Monsters being a reasonable deck to worry about, and just with people enjoying the variety of mid-range decks, I really wanted a card that was good in both of those matchups.
Yep.
And frankly, Dreadbore is it's not dead anywhere. Even against the Revelation decks, you get to blow up some Jaces, blow up some Elspeths. You find some value there. And then it's also nice when the Rev decks go to their sideboard plan of Archangel Lethune and Nightveil Spectre.
Sure.
You already have answers in the deck.
Okay.
So it's been very good, and it's just a card that has no dead matchups,
Sure.
and I think that's very important for your red decks.
Okay, that makes sense.
Minimize the dead
cards. You want to make sure that your removal is as flexible as possible.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I mentioned Dreadbore, the only black card in the main deck.
Yes.
You have some black in the sideboard.
Lots of it.
We are bringing in 2 Rakdos' Return and 2 Thoughtseize.
Yep.
So I assume that was kind of one of the big draws to playing black in the first place.
Absolutely. It started with Dreadbore. I don't think anyone questions the value of that card.
Very flexible.
Specifically for a red deck, being able to just answer something is very important for a deck that is playing some smaller creatures. The returns in the Thoughtseizes, Rakdos' Return was something that I had felt was kind of a fantasy, wasn't really going to pan out most of the time, because the matchups you bring in, like the Revelation decks and the black decks, they do a great job of fighting your devotion. But then after a large amount of testing, talking with some friends, I realized very quickly that you didn't need to Rakdos Return for a bunch.
Right.
Rakdos for 2 kills a Jace, discard 2. Fine. Rakdos for 3, if you have a good game plan, like if you've already cast a couple creatures and made your opponents deal with them, Rakdos Return for 3 many times gets the remainder of their hand. Thoughtseize was I just felt like being a hateful person this weekend, and I just wanted to, I mean, if everyone else gets Thoughtseize, I want my turn. And it's just another card that if I don't know what to bring in, but I know bad cards to take out,
all right, sure.
That it's a slight crutch there, but I really like it in the Revelation matchups.
Yeah, sure.
It's very good there because it's our only way to fight Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it also makes total sense as a catch-all.
Yeah.
Thoughtseize is one of the best cards in the format, if not the best card in the format. It is good against opponents with cards in their opening hand.
Yep.
So if you can cast it, I can totally see having it in your
It
sideboard.
also protects my Stormbreath Dragons. So
sure.
like that's on my list of things to do. It's protect the dragon and kill people with the dragon. So
fair enough.
Thoughtseizing Celestial Flares is one of the better feelings you can have.
All right. And then I want to talk to you a little about Fire Drinker Satyr and Anger of the Gods. These are not cards that are new to the archetype.
No.
A lot of players have had them in their sideboard, even going back to last fall.
Yep.
But I just want to talk to you a little about when you bring these cards in, the thought process behind having them in your board.
Absolutely. So the Fire Drinker Satyrs are there for your mono black matchup. As much as I love a Stormbreath Dragon, a 5-mana 4/4 against a deck stacked with 2-mana answers is just not very good.
Right.
So by having the Fire Drinker Satyrs in the sideboard, I get to take out my dragons, take out a land, Nykthos, and then I get to bring in the Satyrs against mono black, and usually the Fire Drinker's good for anywhere from like 2 to 8 damage.
Right.
And that's really the main role for it. And then also, if you have any matchups where you just have other dead cards.
Sure. You just want to have a card that actually deals damage.
Right. You get to board out, like in some matchups, Mizium Mortars and like hammers. In the creature mirrors, hammers are mediocre, and sometimes you just want another attacker.
Okay.
So he fills that role, but he's there specifically to just solidify the mono black matchup.
Right.
And also the Rev decks. Against the Rev decks, you get to bring him in, and then you have creatures up and down the curve.
Right, okay.
So.
All right, it kind of goes back to what you were saying at the very beginning about how you wanted to be a Burning Tree Emissary deck so that you could have 2 creatures in play by the time that mono black gets to use its first removal spell.
Yep.
Fire Drinker Satyr, of course, helps you do that as well.
And they're usually pretty behind. Now the Angers, that's a card that I played back at SCG Columbus when I played Red-White Devotion. And it's a card that I'm still apprehensive about playing, but the reason I brought it here was the green-black Devotion deck, the Eidolon Blossoms deck, and just Devotion strategies in general. I'm able to board out some of my smaller creatures. I'm able to trim, like just a couple of my 2-drops, and then I can bring in a plan where I play kind of the control role between 3 Mortars, 3 Angers, 4 Dreadbores, Porphyros, and Hammer. And then I just basically trump their Devotion, play my Boros Reckoner, or a better creature, and I win from that position. Frostburn Weir is very important. Being able to go turn 2 Frostburn Weird against most aggro decks, followed up with turn 3 Anger.
Right, okay.
The game's probably over.
Yeah, like I know that it kind of raises some eyebrows because this feels like a deck that wants to swarm the board itself. But yeah, I guess there are decks that swarm the board in a more swarmy fashion.
Absolutely.
And you can kind of gear the deck post-board to prepare for that.
It's also great in the mirror. I feel like I'm at the volume of games with the Devotion strategies that I feel like I'm okay with bringing in cards that are just kind of bombs in the mirror, because in the mirror it's just important. The most important thing is to get the first big Nykthos turn. So if I'm angering you, like I've known I've had anger the whole time. It's the same premise of Wraths Unlimited.
That makes sense.
You control the effect. You get the most out of it. And I'm happy to give up, maybe a 1/2 drop, but a lot of the times I position where I just don't even have to do that. And that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, all right, that seems reasonable. So we just finished round 10.
Yes.
And you are sitting at 9-1, I believe?
Absolutely.
All right, so you're within sniffing distance then of top 8.
Yeah, we're ballparking. One match at a time.
All right,
we'll figure it out from there.
You're just gonna keep playing Magic till they tell you to stop then.
Yes, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Cool, well, I'll be rooting for you. Thanks for sitting down with me.
Thanks a lot, Andrew.
All right. Stick around. We've got plenty more coverage coming of the Invitational here in Columbus.